Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Wife for Life with none other than your favorite marriage specialist, the Michelle McElroy. And joining me today, y'all, oh my goodness, I have to tell you, I just met this dynamo, but y'all talk about a girl on fire. Y'all help me introduce Tonia Lewis.
Oh,
Oh,
I'm so
feels
honored to
all
be with you, beautifuls.
Hey,
Especially you,
Tanya.
Michelle. You are
So
just such
good to
a
see
gorgeous
you.
soul.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. So good to see you. And I'm so happy to have you on the podcast. Cannot wait for everyone to hear your story. So
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, let me start by honoring you because you have had the heartbeat and just the answer to fulfilling your assignment. And I want to honor that. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, your diligence to your own calling, and that I'm just so honored and privileged that we met, we connected so beautifully. And I love when God does a spinoff and when we weren't
Yeah.
even looking for it. So that's first things first. Thank you so much for just trusting me with your vision. And yeah, as far as me, my goodness. So I feel like I've had so many reinventions during the course of my life, but ultimately I've been an entrepreneur for 35 years.
Wow.
And I'm an international business and success coach, a celebrity stylist, a global speaker, the founder of the Total Woman International, and really my most beloved role of the mother of seven gorgeous souls. And now the gammy of 10 with 2 on the way, Michelle.
Oh,
So,
I
so those
love
are my most
that.
beloved roles, right? Like we get to do a lot of things. And of course, for even the heartbeat of what we're here to talk about today, I've also been a wife for really my whole entire life. With one little interim, I have, in my life now a new role of being widowed and carrying on a legacy on behalf of my husband and really unto God, just to fulfill what I was called for, to be at the helm of our family and continue to make sure that these branches grow beautifully.
Oh my goodness. I mean, you just shared so much there. And just knowing you for the short time that I've known you, I mean, man, I cannot imagine being a child in your household. You are such an encourager and just an uplifter and an affirmer. And I'm like, man, her kids got to be on fire. Like they got to be conquering the world. They doing big things because man, this woman is phenomenal. And so, yes, I definitely want to later talk about, your motherhood because motherhood of 7, baby, I am sure you could teach us some things.
Oh, I would love to. It's my favorite topic. It's my
It
favorite.
is? Okay, good.
It is.
Okay,
It
we're gonna get
is.
into that. So tell us, like, you know, um, tell us about your husband. Tell us how you met. I want to give you a chance to honor him and lift up his spirit. So, on this podcast, your children will have a footprint of how awesome their dad was outside of just their own personal perspective. So tell us how you guys met and then tell us something about him.
I would love to. So first of all, I feel like I really had the privilege of living a true love story. And as a girl who left home at 15, being raised in upstate New York, pretty hard knocks, when you're just surviving, leaving home so young. And I feel like one of the greatest gifts that we can all experience is our own coming home, like really coming home to ourselves, really becoming all of ourselves, really like amplifying our essence in this world. And so at the time that I feel like I really called in my husband, we were both in that similar space. Like we were in a space of personal reinvention. We were at a space individually of really knowing that it was time to let go of some old ways of being, even some things where you just kind of become a product of your environment. And so I think sometimes like the love story is beautiful, but I also think what's important, it was the state that I was in when I met my husband, which was a state of really loving myself, like
Mm,
giving myself exquisite self care, really reacclimating to the things that brought me joy. I was really sovereign about who could be in my life and who
mm,
couldn't. And
mm,
I was really like protecting my energy on on a really entirely different level, right? And so this little love story is, and I'll give you the quick version, but just to even show how you can be moving divinely, I
mm,
saw my husband's photo in the drawer of my hairstylist, who was also she became one of my really good friends. So I saw his picture one day, Michelle, and I looked and I said, I know him. And I was like, man, he's so handsome. And I remember him from, and I couldn't figure out, but I remembered seeing him on this one street a lot where I had planned to open a salon before. And I just would always see him in that area. And I was just like, wow, he's gorgeous. And I put the picture back down, never thought anything of it. And one night, my
Tanya,
girlfriend,
how old were you at the time?
I was 24. I was
Okay.
24. And I, on this night, I was really not wanting to be out. I wasn't really wanting to hang out with girlfriends, and my friend was insisting. And to make a long story short, he was there. And he wasn't even living in New York at the time. He was living in DC. He was visiting and he was there. He had grown up with me in my same city,
Yeah.
and he was there. And as soon as I saw him, I said, oh my gosh, that's that guy. I said, I have to meet him. And my
Mhm.
girlfriend goes over and says, these are the friends you don't want. She says, she has a crush on you. And I'm thinking, girl, I never said that. I don't even know him. And she says, my friend has a crush on you. So anyway, he comes over. We talk for like 5 hours. Like the next day, he is at my nail salon, sits all day long, brings me food. He and his friends for a week come every single day.
Oh my
Now, here's
goodness.
the kicker, Michelle. Every evening he'd make a plan and he would not follow through on the plan. So, about on the fifth day, it was time for him to go back to DC. And I said, well, listen, my time is very valuable.
Mm,
And every time we have a change in the evening, and that's just not how I operate. And I said, so I won't be able to honor your invitation tonight because you've been inconsistent during this week. And while I've appreciated you visiting me every day and bringing me food, and I've loved your energy, but I require consistency and I'm just in a different space. So, I wish you well. Enjoy your trip back to DC. Sending you so much love and success energy. and
I
I'm
love it.
get off this phone. And anyway, about 2 months later, and this is really true, I've never had another thought about him. I was busy in my life building me, right? Working on the
Yeah.
best project that you can work on.
Mm-hmm.
And I get a call and it's him. And he says, hey, and this sounds so funny to even say this. It's hysterical. So this will be funny to have for legacy. But he says, hey, sexy girl. And I'm like, oh, I know his voice. And I'm like, oh my gosh, hi, how are you? And make the longest story short, he says, I've moved back. And I said, okay, what brought you back? And he said, you. And I said, me. And, my leery side was like, oh, I swear these men with their game, So I'm like, you must have a business to take care of here and, all the things. And he said, no, he said, seriously, every corner I turn, I see your face. Every place that I went, I would just see you. And I remember the night I met you, I saw this big, beautiful light around you. Like it was like your aura. And he said, I haven't been able to shake it. And I talked to my aunt about it. And she said, if you have that kind of a connection with a woman, you better go after her. So
Yeah.
first date was the laundromat with me. That's how long ago this was. And I had a home that didn't have a working washer and dryer. And his second date was the grocery store. And the rest was history because I saw that he could show up and be there for the right reasons and not just for playtime. And I wanted him to understand that from day one. So he was a man of genuine partnership and beauty, and he came to my life adding value. So that's the one thing that I would say about him to, speak to the question that you asked about what kind of a man he was being at that time.
Man, and what a risky move. I mean, you obviously connected with him because y'all spent 5 hours together talking, So
Yeah,
clearly there was a connection on your part to him, but also him
mhm,
to you because he's coming every day, he's bringing food. But man, did you have standards to be able to say, you know what? As much as I like you, this isn't looking like my future.
correct.
And I want to lean more toward what my future is or make way for whatever or whoever is to be in my future. You
That's
just
right.
blew my mind because like I'm in this coaching business and I talk to women all the time, and I think we may have these lists, right?
Hmm.
But we may not be as clear on what our standards are that are non-negotiable.
I
you know
agree.
I
I
just
agree, Michelle.
and then be willing, because it's one thing to have the list, it's another thing to know what your non-negotiables are, but
That's
then
right.
it's on top of that, to be able to stand your ground in it can be difficult, because as we get older, we feel like the pickings are slim, and
Yeah.
it might not happen, the clock is ticking, and all these different thoughts into our mind that may make us relax our standards.
That's
But
right.
what I heard you say is you wanted a reliable partner.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to your point, I loved so much that you said, because it's the bona fide truth, right? That we can have a list, but does that list contain true partnership qualities, right?
Mm,
Like, not the basics, not the, you can get biceps and handsome faces and beautiful teeth and smiles and all the things, the charm, the finesse, and all the things that you might love about a man's essence. But I think as women, we have to be really, really clear about our standards. And let me just tell you, for me, I was really, really clear, and I was owning my own personal power and
mm,
value. And, later when I asked him about his inconsistencies about the evening meetups, he ended up confessing that he felt emotionally overwhelmed. He said, I just never really felt love so quickly.
wow.
And he admitted that he was kind of sabotaging the opportunity to spend more time. And, that could have cost him big time, right?
Yeah.
But it is for us as women to pace ourselves. And I think that every time that we compromise our standards, like, it's literally like a deposit into the bank in a negative way, right? So we
Yeah.
teach ourselves that we're not valuable. We really reinforce childhood wounds, different points of rejection or abandonment. So when we stand for ourselves really sovereignly, we can trust that whatever is for us is going to reach us. But if we
Yeah.
start to compromise, then we self abandon and we self reject. And I had gone through a lot of healing and deliverance from that dynamic that I was raised in. And you are right. I was 10 toes down that night. Trust me. It was a very firm conversation before he had left. And
Yeah.
the reason that he went and did those tasks with me is because I also wanted to vet him. I
Yeah.
had shared with him that I was very serious about where I was in life and what I had going on. And, for me personally, I had married young to someone that felt very misaligned for me, right? And I feel like everything's a part of your journey, but I was a girl when I met my first husband at 16. So I
Yeah.
was really experienced. I understood what mattered. And I knew that anyone that I invited into my life as a partner really had to show up with qualities of partnership and that kingly, like, I'm here to be the prophet, the priest, and the protector, and
Yeah.
not just to come and think that it's playtime. And
Yeah.
so I was really firm on that, hey, if you're looking just to play and have fun and be casual, this isn't the space for that. Like, no judgment for what you're choosing, but here I'm really dedicated and devoted to my becoming. So,
Man. And you know what else I like about that story?
what's that, girl?
I like that because you stayed firm in your standards, it
Hmm.
allowed him to have a moment where he self-reflected and discovered something about himself
Yeah.
that he was self-sabotaging. that
Yeah.
he never felt love so fast before, or maybe even so pure before, that he had to do some self work to recognize what that was that was causing him to lose out on something that he had valued so quickly.
That's right.
And sometimes we think if we have boundaries, if we put our foot down, like you said, 10 toes down, or if we have standards, that we may miss out. But
Right.
you actually may teach, train, develop. You
Yes.
actually may show the way and pave the way.
That's
And
right.
and that's what relationships are all about. The ones for the long haul is self-development, and then bringing that regenerated self to the table each and every time.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. All
yeah.
of that. Yes.
I love that. I love that. So, okay. So you guys got married and at what age?
At 25.
At 25. Oh, so it didn't take you long. After he straightened that up, you were ready. Okay. I
Yeah,
like.
he came in being a husband, he came in being a husband, supporting my business that I had,
Mhm.
developing himself. Like he came in like go mode. And the other part is that, I have done some purification prior to this too, Michelle. So like I was in a zone where I was like reading Iyanla Van Zant. I was reading In the Spirit by Susan Taylor. Like I was in my becoming, right? So
Mhm.
it's also, I feel like when we're really in our alignment and our own like personal power, it doesn't take long to understand, right? And they have to know first, right? And so he knew from the very like beginning that I was his woman, that I was his wife. And he knew that and he spoke that. But
Yeah.
also I knew because he had the qualities that mattered, not
Mm.
surface things. He really came with the qualities and the characteristics that I knew would have longevity, right? That
Mhm.
weren't just going to be a fleeting little romance, but that this was like, now this is where a power couple gets born. And so, no, it didn't take long, but that's also because I had sat with that in the
Mhm.
quiet, right? Like while everyone else was running and playing at 25, I was really grounding myself. And I wasn't about anyone else. I was really looking inwardly and developing greater levels of self awareness to
Mm.
understand what I had chosen before, right? Or what were the family of origin dynamics and patterns that I just wasn't going to take forward anymore. So
Mm.
it was a lot of self reflection and a lot of growth that preceded, and a lot of spiritual cleansing, just a lot that was preparatory. So I feel like my intuition was super strong. And it's, again, when something's divine and you've already like had a vision, it is easy to make the right decision. Because I had some cutie pies now. Like, let's know.
Yes,
The
let's
little
be clear.
roster had been thick. Like, there were plenty lined up.
I love it. I love it. And,
25 was different.
right, but it's got to be the right one. And what I love too about it is that, I know just by saying you left home at 15, you had experienced some life.
Serious.
You had
Yeah.
experienced some life. And
Yeah.
so that's indicative for hopefully for all of having to, when you go through stuff, that you hopefully are learning from those experiences and growing as an individual. And
Yes.
then to me, it's like, even like I hear people again going back to these lists of what they want in a spouse.
Hmm.
But I always encourage them. I think the most important list is a list of who you want to be as a spouse, more important than who you want as a spouse,
Right.
because what he saw in you was his future. He
Mm.
saw a woman who could help him, like you said, be this power couple by pouring into him,
Yes. Absolutely.
and helping him actualize what God, why God created him and what his purpose was and who God was calling him to be. So you could pour all of that into him because you had already done the self work. And when you create a list of who you want to be as a wife, how you want to show up, then now you can self-govern, and
Yeah,
you can say, okay, I'm not living up to my own potential, so therefore you're looking at all his faults and you're judging him for it, versus seeing how God divinely created both of you guys to help each other with each other's shortcomings.
that's
Like,
right.
all of my strengths are not my husband's strengths,
That's
and
right.
all of his strengths are not mine, so we pair together so well because we're pouring our own strengths into the other person, into our partner. And so that's what I saw. um um as I'm listening to your story, I'm envisioning it, and that's what I saw, that in him, he's like, wow, she is a real woman, she is a real one, as guys say. And I could see my future with her. I could see growth. I could see me becoming the man I want to be. And he came ready to be a husband. He decided, because we think, oh, I want a husband, right? As women, but no, you have to want to be a wife.
That's right.
And
That's
he
exactly right.
wanted to be a husband. So that was so freaking phenomenal. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Give me more of it. Like, I could eat it up. Okay, so you guys met, you had this fairy tale. I mean, man, I have heard all I need to know about him,
Mhm.
because he fulfilled what, obviously, what you wanted and expected from that relationship.
Yes.
And so grateful to God for that. So, seven, though. Okay, let's move to your favorite topic, which is parenting. So how did that come about? Did you guys start at zero? Did you bring to the table? Did you have to do the blended family thing? Because there's people out here who've got all different kind of circumstances that probably could use your input.
Absolutely, yes. So we were a blended family. I had 3 children from my first marriage. And that's another thing to speak to, right? Is like the kind of heart that my husband brought in the beginning to come in and father 3 children from my first marriage, right?
Yeah.
And to be a part of restoring what I really needed in terms of support, right? So I think that's another thing for women to look at, especially when you have children, which is why I gave the example of, I had a full house that had the issues with the washer and dryer, and I wanted to see, could he really come in and do what, as a mother, I needed to do as a single mother and a businesswoman? Would he be willing to do those things, or was he there for the aesthetic and the glamour of the life that I, was creating with a beauty brand and all the things that were going on? And that was important to watch what he would bring to the table as a father figure to my children. And then he and I added our next 3 children, and then another one that came later, which is, she's a godsend of not my natural child, but a divine God gift that came to us in the teens, neither of our natural children. So, yeah, so we had a very blended family and a beautiful experience growing a legacy that was just divinely orchestrated.
Yeah. Now it sounds like, obviously, because you guys got married, he was open to that, right?
Yeah.
My question for you is, even though he was open to it, there still may have been differences of opinion, or, ideals of how to raise a family
Oh, yeah.
together and things like that. How did you guys navigate those differences?
That's such a great question. And I'm so glad that we're speaking to this, right? Because you're absolutely right. Like, even if you have all of your children with one husband, I think that sometimes we're just wired differently, right? Like, we have different raising, we have different experiences, we have a different way of being
Yeah.
that comes through and shines through in parenting. And so you're correct. Like, I think I had studied parenting like so deeply because of the household that I was raised in, and the desire to really break those patterns and just some of the dysfunctions. I was really, really, really concerned, Michelle, with being a mother that I had seen in a neighbor. And and let me say this, I thank God for my mother. She did the very best that she could with the level of consciousness and awareness and knowledge that she had.
Yeah.
She was a younger mother. She had things she was healing through, and she did what she could. And she gave me some tremendous gifts, right?
Mhm.
But I also knew that there was more. And I knew that I felt like God had a different vision for me. So I spent a lot of time developing my motherhood role. And I read everything. I went to every seminar. I was like up underneath whatever they had at church, eventually gave parenting classes. And I was just really absorbed with creating a beautiful, safe, and a really nurturing home for my children. And my husband, while he brought great fatherhood qualities to the table, you're absolutely right. We had different parenting styles. We saw things differently. And, to your point, these are the places where, one, you have to prayerfully meet together,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
this is where we take ego, preference, and those things away, and we decide, how do we blend both of our styles? Because I think what's important, and one thing that I know that my children saw, was modeling respect for my husband, even if there were some things that I may have thought he could do or say differently, or just a perspective that I wanted to invite him to. I had
Mhm.
those conversations privately with him so that my children saw reverence and they saw honor.
Yeah.
And, as they grew and became teens, then there were different times where we were having family things together, but it was still really important, just to always hold my husband to a high space and
Yeah.
bring my children together. Like sometimes I feel like I was doing a lot of nurturing for both of them. And I realized that his example and some of the things that he learned, or the ways that just as a father, he saw things where I might have had a softer space for
Yeah.
my children. We had to work at those things. And I was a homeschooling mother for 20 years. So I spent the majority of my time with my children, right? So I
Yeah.
had a lot of time to do the things in parenting that I felt were important. And my
Mhm.
husband never interfered with me in terms of my desire to school them a certain way or teach them a certain thing. I think just sometimes we had differences, like most families that I'm learning. We had differences on how we saw things or what approach might have been better,
Mhm.
and that's always a touchy space, because I can say, and I just can say this so authentically, and maybe this is the case with many of our sisters that are listening. The parenting place was where many disagreements came up.
Mhm.
So that was the case in my household. A lot of things that we agreed on, the parenting place would sometimes be the place where it would be like, I don't see that way, love.
Yeah.
So it was a work in progress through all of our years, and having so many children with so many different needs and so many different personalities.
Yeah. And woohoo. Wait, look, I gotta give honor because homeschooling 7 for 20 years.
Woo, girl.
You just
Yeah.
knocked me out. Like, oh, I need a refresher. Seriously, like I tried it with one, and then the second one came, and I was like, oh no, I give up. I give up. Because that is very difficult, and you have to have your own level of structure and discipline. No matter what type of curriculum they offer, it's
Right.
still a very difficult task to do.
It
And
is.
so and then to not have a break from your kids, for some people that would be extremely difficult as well. So you still love them, but sometimes people just don't have the bandwidth to be with them all day. And so
That's
I
right.
applaud you big time for being able to do that, and you obviously went all the way through with it to do it for 20 years. But I also want to just kind of reflect on what you just said about the differences that you have in parenting, that stems from the differences you have in upbringing, and
Yes.
how it's important that we have those discussions and kind of come to some type of peaceable solution, because at the end of the day, our children need both of our perspective. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And even as my children are older, my youngest is 18, my oldest is 27, there are some outcomes that I see now that I'm like, I should have let my husband have more of his way. You know what I mean? But then there's some other ones where I'm like, oh, I'm so grateful that he compromised with me on this because this is the outcome that I see that I love. Like
That's
our
right.
family is very close. We have people who ask us, you know, how do you get your kids to open up to you like that? You know,
Mhm.
and some of that was what he, you know, had standards on, which was dinner at the table every,
Mm.
you know, and our
Love.
kids were active kids.
Yeah.
So, you know, to start that young was important because once they hit high school and all the schedules are going in
So
different
busy.
directions, it's darn near impossible, right? But if
Yes.
you do it when they're in elementary and middle school, now you've created this culture in the household where your children feel safe to talk to
That's
you
right.
about anything. And so I'm really appreciative to him for that. But then my offering was, hey, now we opened this up. You can't freak out when they share something that is displeasing. You know, you got
Right.
you got to still love them through it. You got to be calm. And so he appreciated me bringing that to the table. So
Yes.
yeah, teamwork at its finest. It's the most difficult place other than finances to have teamwork,
Yeah.
but it's the most rewarding too, because when you see those beautiful babies turn into these awesome adults, and then when you become a grandparent, you see them parent their children, and it's like, oh my
Exactly.
gosh, you know, I got something right, you know. So
That's right. That's
yeah,
right. Yeah, you said so much. You're absolutely right. And then, I think the other part is recognizing, like, you really have to give up wanting to be right and do what's right for the greater good of your family and your children, and that unit. And that also is honoring that our children are just, they're just ours by virtue of God lending them, right?
yes,
Honoring their sacred journeys and recognizing where we fall short, right? So even if we miss it, whether we miss it with our spouse or we miss it on our own, that where we fall short, I just love that we get to know that God can make up the difference,
that's
that
right.
grace can meet us, because everyone's on their sacred journey. There's, a lot of times you can even put the best ingredients in, and
Mhm.
sometimes you don't see that. You don't see that manifest in your marriage. You don't see it manifest in your children. And I think it's important to speak to that, because there's so many women that are disillusioned and they're doing the right things. They're doing the hard things because they're right. And
Yeah,
sometimes you don't see the reveal of that until much later.
yeah,
And, we need encouragement in that interim.
yeah, yeah. So so how long, tell us a little bit about your experience with the passing of your husband. How long has it been now?
Mhm.
And how have you done life, you know? You
Yeah,
because man, I can't imagine. Like yeah.
girl. It is, let me just tell you, it's been the most defining thing that I've ever experienced. It'll be almost 7 years. And what I will say is, I was really fortunate for these reasons.
Mhm.
One, I'm really rooted in my faith. I'm really rooted in my faith, right? So I was really fortunate that I just had my spiritual grounding to go to in the midst of grief and loss and heartbreak. And how do I get at the helm of such a large family with not just my 7 kids, but my in-love children who become a part of, the group that I nurture, our beautiful village, all
Yeah.
my grandbabies, still continuing life with as much alignment as possible.
Mhm.
So doing the things that need to be done while you're in grief, those were the hardest things for me, right?
Mhm.
But it's unimaginable. And what I've learned in the midst of that is, even in the spaces of uncertainty, like when you have your faith and you're really rooted, you can watch God move, and you can literally surrender to everything that you thought you could control, because that's what loss really teaches us. So the year that my husband died, one of my brothers, my stepdad, his dad, my aunt, they all passed within 12 months.
Oh my
So I had a
goodness.
year of losing many of the pillars in my life,
Yeah.
right? And especially the masculine pillars, right? Because That was 4 of the masculine pillars in my life. And I think that what we forget is that until you're in it, is that when we hit the hot spot, right, or the loss or the grief or the unimaginable, the tragedy, plan A is over, right? Because I had a vision for what I thought my life would be and what would be happening. But plan B is a part of our lives. And, you and I spoke to this before we got started, that this can happen to any woman at any time, as can many things that can happen through the course of your marriage. Like even prior to my husband's death, there are just things that I experienced in my family and in life in general that you just don't imagine are going to be a part of your journey, especially the way that you might set your life up, or you might have, tried to plan as much as you could for these outcomes, right? And so I think of one, I had a little practice, Michelle, in being good at surrendering, being non-resistant to here I am. And what do I do with this? And one thing that I'm always committed to, as I said, I had an advantage because I had been a success coach for a long time. And one of the things that we know and we're well trained in, like I've worked with women throughout the world for decades. So I had a real toolbox on everything from mind, body, spirit practices, how to move grief through the body, how to really be present to my heart and not be in any kind of, I think a lot of times people numb out, right? So they try to find things to escape, but I was really able to sit in the fire with my emotions. I feel like I had a healthy way of being able to process emotions and to support my children and my grandbabies in doing the same. And so I was advantaged in that way, right? That I had that, and I had a phenomenal support system, and not just of really loving, beautiful friends that really showed up for us, but also because I'm in the coaching industry and have been there for so long, I had phenomenal friends that are all like coaches, psychologists, like everyone came together, on my behalf, right? But I think the big thing that brought me through, and this is the thing that I'd lend to any woman who has to start life over. I didn't plan when I married my first husband, even at 16, you just think, all the things are going to go a certain way. I didn't plan for a first divorce before I had a major, beautiful, big love story that lasted a long time. And again, along the way of 2.5 decades, so many things occur in life. So many things test the fiber of that covenant, right? And of your connection as you're growing and becoming, and he's growing and becoming, and the world is changing, and the children are changing ages. So I think we need to normalize that there's a life-death cycle, even if someone doesn't leave physically, right? And there were that had changed over time. And there were hard things that I experienced in the course of my family. And so now with loss, one of the things that I recognized was that this is just another opportunity to bring purpose out of pain. And I can always make it, Michelle, if I can know something phenomenal can live through this, that the very things that if I got to stand in the ashes and figure out how to bring some beauty, that if in some way there's a potency of something that'll evolve in me, in my family, that in some way we can glorify God, in some way something can get created. I just feel like I can manage pain with more, maybe just more enthusiasm for a future, right? And the one thing that I did and that I invited my children to do, well, 2 things. One was that I shared with them that they got to grieve any way that felt good, that felt natural and organic for them, that there was no right or wrong, that we were not allowing people to be in our space telling us be strong, how we should look, feel, do. I was sharing with my children that their father loved life. He loved to travel. He loved adventure. So like a month after he passed, we had planned to go to LA for some things that didn't get done the year before. And I knew that some people would maybe see that as like, she's traveling already. She's off doing business seminars. And, it hasn't been that long. But one of the things that really, the gift that death gave me was really to be here for me, to support myself on an entirely new level of honoring what I needed, what I felt, what was helping me manage and get through and still create a beautiful family that would go on to do great things. And I really had to like make everyone around me a silent voice. Just genuinely. Like I had to shut all voices off and listen solely to my own heart and my own truth. And I advised my children to do the same because I felt like it would be a healthier healing path for us. And I remember sitting on my sofa, which is just off to the left of me here in a favorite space in my kitchen where I'm sitting now. And I remember sitting and I was in a lot of grief coming from New York after we had his homegoing service. And I remember saying to God, and all the pain that I feel, I want to live and I want to make it great. And I want to continue things that he started. I want to do all of the dreams and the desires of my heart unto him, right? So not in spite of, but unto him. And that when people complete their lives, those of us that are here, we still have the gift of life. And I think it honors people when we live at our highest level. And so I really started thinking about the things I wasn't doing, you know, in my own business and brand or the callings that I had. And I just decided to fire it up. So I did my healing. Yes, I spent time with my emotional heart, but I crafted a vision, and I have chills now, like from head to toe. I crafted a new vision. And it was difficult because it was now not with my husband and our family, but for the first time, I had to figure out how to do life, you know, on my own after 2.5 decades of all the oneness, right? And as I said, even with complexity of marriage, I had a co-parent, I had someone that did life and supported me in different ways. And I crafted that vision. And I feel like every woman, whether it's post-divorce, post-disease, post whatever, right? Where you have to reinvent yourself. The vision will call us forward. When you anchor in and you have a quest, and I began to look at each of my children and grandchildren and decide what that would look like for us. And I decided to live with high level joy. I decided that I would fulfill what I could in the time that I was here. And again, unto not just my husband, but my other family members that I had lost. And that's the gift that death gave me, was recognizing there aren't any replays. You don't get do-overs. You don't get to tell people you love them when they're not here. The time is always now. No replays in life, none. So I lived with more potency, and I really got at the helm of my life and my family's life as a new leader and a really sovereign leader of beauty and joy and grace, and also unapologetic fierceness, that we weren't going to allow anyone to interfere with how we did grief and how we did life, because that's what my husband would always stand for.
Oh my goodness, that is so beautiful. Oh man. Man, listen, I see why you do what you do. You are a master coach. You are not just any coach. You are a master coach. You know, in coaching, so I started off counseling, transitioned over to coaching. And one of the things that I absolutely love about the programs that I went through to get certified to coach were very adamant about, you have to experience this first before you could teach it to someone else.
Yes.
You have to live it out. You have to embody it first before you can go and tell somebody about it, because they can tell if you're just telling them what to do versus you're speaking from your own personal experience.
Correct. That's right.
And that's what I'm hearing, like through you. It's like it pulls me in and want to listen. It makes me want to listen more and more to what you're saying, because you're walking this through in your own personal life. You're not just telling somebody to do it. And no offense to any professor that's out there, that's, you know, or coach that's out there doing it differently. I just feel like it's more effective when you go through it first. And one of the things that I'm hearing from you that I think is phenomenal that I embody myself is I push myself through the pain.
Yes.
Relationships are painful no matter who they're with, and no matter how much you love one another.
Yes.
They're difficult because you have to work through your own issues to be able to effectively communicate with them and to
Yes.
interact with them in a way that you're not so sensitive that you're missing the whole point of each and every conversation.
That's right, Michelle.
And so I absolutely love what you're saying, because it's just it's reiterating the importance of not settling for any type of life, to pursue
Mhm.
the type you really want. One of the programs I went through, he said you have the life you've settled for.
Ooh, oh, girl, I just got a chill on that. And it is the
Right?
absolute truth. Yeah, I just got chills from head to toe. That's the absolute bona fide truth, right?
Yes. And you have said throughout this interview, I decided. And a
Mm,
lot of times you even talked about personal power, like all those key words that
mm,
to me are so rich. And if
mm.
only, and I'm sure you and I and every other coach in America, if we could only get our clients to recognize that they have the power, they just
Yes,
have to act on it.
yes,
They
yes,
just have
yes,
to act on it. You have to choose, you have to believe, you have to do it. And so yeah, they a lot of people feel like, oh man, that's easier said than done. And of course it is.
yeah,
However, it's not that difficult to just make a to change your perspective. You have to want to do it though.
yes,
And
yeah,
that's what I'm getting from you is, this was something that you wanted for your life. And yes, you took time to take care of your emotional and mental state, but
yes,
you wanted so much more for your life and for your children, because they are always watching
always,
and learning. They learn more from what we do than what we say.
all the time, yeah, all the
Yeah.
time, Michelle.
And
All-
now grandchildren.
yes, almost 12,
Oh,
10 right now, and two on the way as
two
this
in the oven, huh?
with the oven. Yes,
I love it. So tell
exactly.
me, because we are like, this is probably gonna be one of my longest. I don't care. We
I,
gonna get all the
I,
nuggets we
I do.
can. And then at some point, maybe I could convince her y'all to partner with me on something, because this is so good.
Oh, I would love to be doing anything with your sweet self. You just
Don't tempt me.
carry
Don't
so much beautiful life in you. Like
tempt me.
what you stand for is just so incredible. So
Thank you.
yes,
Hey, we got to stick together. Wife for life is all about wife to wife. We
wow.
can learn a lot from each other.
Always,
I'm
always,
like you. I will pick up a book in a heartbeat or listen to it on audio if my life gets too busy. But
yeah.
at the end of the day, everybody may not feel like they have the time or
Mhm.
the wherewithal to learn that way. We all learn differently. I am a connect learner. I like both. I
Yeah,
like to read a book, but I also like hands-on activities. But some people might just need you
exactly.
to, help them along the way. And
Yes.
so, yeah, that's what this is all about, us learning from each other. And so I appreciate that. So
Mhm.
tell us a little bit, because we really dove into almost every aspect of your life other than your professional aspect. And
Yeah.
I love to hear, like, you went from being in the beauty industry to being a success coach. How did both come about? And, how would you encourage another woman to, how do you balance it all? Like, how do you say yes to all those hats? Because
Mhm.
I will tell you, when my children were young, having four pretty much stepping stones, I just didn't feel like I had the bandwidth. But
Yeah.
now that I'm older, I feel like if I had somebody in my life to say, look, this is how you do it.
Yes.
And I might have been able to do it when I was younger, but I'm not upset that I didn't do it. I'm embracing it right in this season of life happily and wholeheartedly. But at the same time, I want any wife or any woman listening to the podcast to be inspired with whatever choice they make. So tell us, how did you get into the beauty industry? How did you transition to being a success coach, or are you still doing both at the same time? And how do you balance, and how did you as well balance being a entrepreneur, a businesswoman, a wife, and a mother?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you said so much just even in terms of the difficulty with it, right? And I think that the first thing is that I somehow normalized that the perfect balance that I always wanted wasn't usually possible, right? But that it was more about looking for harmony. So if that
Mm.
makes sense, right? Like we're not always balanced because sometimes we have more to give to a project, or when I've been doing, like, for instance, I do retreats throughout the world, right? So Egypt, Dubai, sometimes in New York, Miami, different places, different spaces. When I host those things, a lot of energy and time will go to those, right? And even in the past, when I would speak at different places and do things, sometimes we're giving a little more to a particular project or a thing that we're birthing. When I opened up boutiques or salons, you're birthing. So you are devoting a lot, and you're having to think about the fact that it's for a short time, right? Because we want to resume being prioritized and giving in these other areas. So I think sometimes that's the challenge that mothers and wives have, is thinking that you're going to always be able to give everything the exact amount of energy, and you're not. Like, you become very energetically dispersed. You
Yeah.
spoke to it, Michelle. There's capacity limits, physically, mentally, emotionally, sometimes even spiritually, and we have to honor those things and relieve ourselves of perfection. So I would say that's a thing that I really had to embrace, was that it was about, for me, being excellent. Like, I always had a vision for my home. I always had a vision for my wifehood, for my motherhood, the kind of environment that I was deciding to create, right? And I would look at, and I still to this day do the same thing, and now have to do it differently, being the sole parent of, my beautiful legacy, right?
Yeah.
Is this, I would look at what, first and foremost, what the main priority was, what the season was for. And sometimes you have to really lean into your intuition, because as business women, we can get caught up in something that's coming up or a project. And that's the time where, if you're spending enough time with God and your spiritual practice, right? It looks different for all of us. But I think that when we're grounded in our spirituality, when you have morning rituals where before you just start to move through chaotically and respond to things, we have to ground ourselves. We have to settle ourselves in a space of remembering what's important every single day and letting that come through in our quiet time, right? So in the quiet time, I'd always get the hit. Sometimes I'd feel it, like my husband needs more time or my kids need more time. So that means I got to adjust something, right? And I think the other thing is, you want to build your empire, especially for business women. The advantage that we have when we have our own businesses is that we really need to design those. And this is what I did to keep a lot of peace and harmony in my own life. I designed them around the season of my family, around the needs of my family. So
Yeah.
when I was a homeschooling mom, I decided what days I would be in my boutique or be in my salon, right? And to your point, how I got into coaching was, so I was doing styling. I mean, I was styling for like people's record covers. That's how long ago that was, right? So I'm like, do they all still do it the same? I'm sure there's so much digital stuff now.
Mhm.
But like, I was working with really high level women. And it's wild. That's why I love so much about the diversity in the women that I've been able to serve. Some were high profile women, some were rising stars, right? And many were also just really, really committed entrepreneurial. Like they had their own little celeb vibes going on. So they too were having to look at their lives and how they could balance things. And I noticed that every time I was with them, pulling clothes, running up and down to New York and LA and Miami, getting things, that really we were having conversations about their struggle with life balance. And I feel like I became a success coach every time I was on a set or working with them or spending a large degree of time, even when I was doing nails, like people were like, how do you get it done? What are you doing? So I'd share every book I was reading. I would share all the little nuggets and the wisdom that I was receiving. And I was praying for that, Michelle. So that's the other thing. I was sitting in quiet. Like my loves, like we're so endowed with a current and a wealth of wisdom if we'll be still enough. If we're still, we'll get the direction that we need, right? Because you're only moving in life through your wounds or your wisdom. And sometimes all the fast paced, chaotic responding, trying to be perfect, trying to create this thing, that thing, be on other people's timetables, that's the wounded part of us that feels like we have to show up and prove. There's a lot of performance energy. There's a lot of relating to other people, running your household like you've seen everyone else doing it. Now it's social media for the newer mothers and the younger wives. We didn't have that challenge I'll be 50. I just turned 56. So like we didn't have that challenge then. So we didn't have comparisonville to make us feel insignificant. We had to do what it looked like to keep the main thing, right? The main thing, and the first thing first. So whatever that season calls for, when you're intuiting that and God's speaking to you, that's the place that we need to give the most energy and attention. And to back up a little, I designed my businesses around the needs of my children, around the needs of my husband. And I did have some non-negotiables for when I would work, what I would do. Sometimes you can't always make those calls to be able to step into grand opportunities. But I also had a real genuine requirement that it could not disrupt my household. And, the last thing that I would say is, you got to identify your priorities in every season. And remember, we're the nucleus of our homes, right?
Yes.
So we're the nucleus. So I also wasn't confused, girl, that I needed to take like superior care, exquisite care of me, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, relationally, financially, in the role that I was playing in my businesses. And when I saw myself as a conduit and a powerful activator for my family, it wasn't a situation of denying myself what I really needed, whether that was more rest. I decided to be a happy woman, and that made me a happy mother, and that made me a happy wife. So there wasn't like a thing of like, sometimes you even hear wives say, Michelle, like, oh, well, I will match that energy. And the reality is your husband goes through different seasons. So I never decided to match his energy. I decided to maintain mine.
Yeah.
And I did that with time in space with God, with sisters who held a solid example for me, and, really grounding myself in the way of being that I was going to show up every day. And I also think that to the degree that we're willing to be overwhelmed and we're willing to be stressed out, is to the degree that we will. So I took the stance that I'm not deciding to be a stressed out mother and wife. Like, that's not my jam. I want to enjoy my children and my husband and what life offers us. And I think that you got to manage the extra commitments that have nothing to do with your family's real growth. And you have to make some serious decisions about removing those things. And if it isn't scheduled, it isn't real. So scheduling the things that we really say matters. The people, the baby dates, right? I'd still date my kids one-on-ones, just do little one-on-ones with them. So things like that.
I love it. That is awesome. If it's not on the calendar, it's not real.
It's not scheduled. It's not real.
Oh my goodness. I live by my calendar, and man, and I tell people all the time, if you didn't send me a calendar alert or you didn't get one from me, we're probably not meeting. Seriously, because it keeps things in order for you when you have a busy lifestyle. So, man, you just dropped so much, Tonia. I want to say so much after even just what you said, but I know we're out of time. We're over an hour, or about an hour, and I want to keep people's attention. But man, you could easily keep my attention, sis.
Girl, we're gonna be lunching. We got things to talk about. We got
We
things
got
to
so
do.
much to talk about, and you are just such an awesome example of womanhood and what it all entails, but all what it should be also for
Mhm.
us, and I just hear a lot of grace for ourselves, a lot of love for ourselves.
Mhm.
And so I appreciate that. And I appreciate you for being on this episode of Wife for Life. And I appreciate all of you guys for joining another episode of Wife for Life. Hey guys, if you enjoyed what you heard, if you grew, which I know you did, I shouldn't even ask that question. The fact that you grew, you should want somebody else to grow.
Yeah.
So share, like, subscribe, do all the things that will keep this podcast going and alive, guys. So I thank you so much for your support. And Tonya, ooh, man,
Oh, girl,
you
thank you. Thank you so much again, just for being the woman that you are, Michelle, and the way that you show up. I was instantly enamored when I got to just be in your presence and just saw that you're so intentional in the way that you love, girl. Like you really know how to love. And
I
I'm so honored just for us to have what I hope will be a transformative conversation that matters to your queens and to all of you beauties. I just pray that you stay encouraged and know that even the things that maybe no one notices that you do in the quiet places, it
yeah.
all adds up. It all counts. The rewards are so great. So stay the course for your own feminine embodiment, and it will reflect in your life and in your family's legacy. So, Michelle, I just thank you so much for allowing me this beautiful time and fulfillment of my own legacy to spend these moments with you and your beautiful community.
Thank you for your yes, guys. Thank you for listening. And I hope you guys follow Tanya. Guys, you gotta follow Tanya because as you see, she is a gem dropping them left and right.
Oh,
Follow Tanya on Instagram. I know for sure. Tanya, tell them where they can follow you at.
yeah, yeah. I just love, it's so crazy. For a long time, I didn't do social media because I have an email community that I share a lot with. But if you follow me on Instagram on I am Tonia Marie, that's right on the screen. I saw Michelle. She's so great at making sure everything's easy for you. If you follow me there, then, another thing, DM me. Like, I really love to know who divinely, out of the billions of people in the world, we connected with here, because we don't become ourselves by ourselves. Our
That's right.
sisterhood matters. That's how we stay strong. So send me a message if you do follow and let me know what you learned, what you got. And from there, if you want to be a part of my email community, I'll send you the link so that you can also get like weekly inspiration on all things femininity, all things womanhood, and being the total woman, which will give you more joy in your wifehood and motherhood if that is your season.
Yes. Well, sign me up. You got my email. And until next time, you guys, happy loving. Peace
Oh,
out.
yes. Love
Take
you
care.
all. Love you all.